Fred, we got to talk. If you're going to do that before I have to get up here and do these, you got to let me know that's going to happen. Now, all right, as long as next time, because it leaves me in this place where then I'm stressful because then I got to go out and talk to them. And should we take a vote? No? All right. Okay. All right. Well, and it's funny that's how this kind of started, because I was thinking about this the other day, the stress that we all put ourselves under. And sort of stress that builds up within us. And I don't know about you, but it seems like I have these moments where I'm trying to get to this meeting, and I've got to get to this meeting, but I've got all this other stuff I need to get done first, and I really should be doing that instead of going to this meeting, but I've got to get to that meeting. And then I've got this talk coming up next week, and I've got a title for it, but that's about it. And so all of this stuff keeps building up in me, and at the same time, I'm trying to balance that with a life with a family. That stress builds up, and that pressure builds up, and it gets to you. Am I the only one that's alone in this? Any of the rest of you out there? There's a couple of, okay, there's at least a few of you that stress can build up for at times in your life. And, if we're not careful, that stress can consume us. It brings me to my cup friend right here. And we'll give him a little smiley face here. There we go. Because this cup represents you. This cup represents you in this moment where you might be feeling some stress. You might be feeling just a little bit of pressure building around you. And I'm going to represent the stress. And so that stress builds up, and it builds up, and then it can crush us, right? It can get to the point where we just collapse under the weight of all of that pressure. And you know what? There's nothing we can do about that stress in our lives. It's going to show up. I think about where I was this time last year, the week before graduation and ordination at seminary. And I'm not kidding. I had a list that was 2 pages long with 2 columns on each page with stuff written in the margins that I needed to accomplish before they were going to ordain me. I was sitting there going, I don't have time. There's no way I have time. And that stress starts building up. By the way, I got it all done. You always do if you apply yourself. But in the meantime, there has to be a way to deal with that pressure, to deal with it so we don't end up like this. It occurs to me that there has to be a spiritual solution to this problem. There has to be some way that we can use this power of God to help us deal with the pressure around us. And so let's just commit right now in this moment to finding the spiritual solution to what we do in our lives when the stress of the world starts building up. Now, there are so many places you can go to find spiritual resources and spiritual wisdom. We have a bookstore just right across from us that is filled with resources for you. But today, one of the resources that I want to use is actually this book, the Bible. Now, I have had an interesting history with this book. This book and I have not always got along. There was definitely a time in my life when I would look at this and go, what does this have to do with me? It was written so long ago. It was written by people who I didn't know, talking about problems that I'm not likely to experience. I'll just ignore this. And then my perspective shifted. And what I came to realize was that this book is a collection of stories, a collection of history, a collection of poetry. It's the writings of a people about their relationship with God and how they interacted with that presence in their world. And so what I've realized that we can do is we can take something from this. We can read it, and then we go into our own time of discernment, our own time of meditation, of prayer, of study and research, and just self-reflection. And then we get to decide what, if anything, that particular passage has to do with our lives. Or we're able to take the Bible seriously, but not literally. All right, I'm going to get down off my soapbox now and get back to the question at hand, which is, how do we find support in the world around us? And today I found a clue, at least, to where that support can come from the Gospel of Matthew. From the 18th chapter of Matthew, in verse 19, Jesus says, again, truly I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there among them. For where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there among them. You know, I'd heard that verse before. And usually, when I hear it, it's talking about prayer. It's the idea that when we gather in prayer, like in a mastermind prayer group or in a team of prayer chaplains, that presence of God is there with them. But as I considered this idea of how it is that we get support from the world around us when we're going through stress, I heard that verse in a different light. And then I looked at the context of what was happening in that particular section of the scripture. And what I found out was that this was Jesus talking to the disciples, explaining to them how the world worked around them. And that idea that no matter how alone you feel, as long as there's two or three of you like-minded thinkers together, that presence of God is there within you. That presence of God is there with you. And so I started to think back about all of the times in my life when I felt the pressure and stress of what I was doing build up. And then I started to think about the people that I surrounded myself with and how they helped me in that moment. You see, that thing about the stress is that it builds up and we forget the truth of what we are. We get so caught up in the world around us that we end up crushed like that cup. Instead of remembering the truth that we are the Christ. We are the perfect potential of God in every moment. And so when we surround ourselves with a group of people who have a similar viewpoint on the world, we're reminded of that same truth, that we're the power and presence of God. So I thought about all of these moments. I thought about these times. Well, I could share this one or I could share that one. But what I thought would be particularly powerful is you guys hear enough from me. I wanted you to hear from somebody who's been participating in a small group, somebody who's been allowing that group to help support them in their life. And so what I'd like to do is have you join me in welcoming two members of our current small groups up here to the stage with me. Chris and Rick, come on up. And I know your name's Curtis. I don't know why I said Rick. This is Curtis. Well,
it's okay.
I have so much running through my head. And it's like, Chris, Rick, come on up. No, this is Curtis. It is stress. It is stress. And now I have two. There's two or three to help support me in my stress. If you guys would have a seat, welcome. Thank you for joining me. So why don't you start out just by telling us just a little bit about yourselves. Who are you?
So my name is Chris Cheatham. I live right down the street. My wife is Melissa. We have two kids, Ben and Stone, and they're great. And hopefully they haven't set the church on fire today.
I don't smell smoke yet, so I think we're okay.
And I'm Curtis Wilson. Been in Unity all of my life. Great aunt that studied under the Fillmores. My mother and father were both Unity ministers. The love of my life is with me this morning. Pat Smith's on the front row. And I spent half of my life as a school teacher and the other half in business.
Wonderful. And what groups are you a part of?
I'm with the Healthy Cooking Group. And it's a wonderful support group.
And I'm with the Entrepreneurs in the Spirit group. It's business people that like to talk about their business issues in a spirit-led way.
So would you mind just telling us, first of all, how long you've been a part of the group, but also just what those get-togethers are like when you go to one of your small group meetings?
So we've been doing Entrepreneurs in Spirit for well over a year and a half. I don't even know. And we really have a loose format. We just do a quick check-in to see how everyone's doing, how their businesses are doing. And then we have a topic that we'll talk about. And it's really a kind of a free-flowing discussion, so we can all talk about, what pops to mind, what comes up when we think about an issue. And then we close out by, talking about our takeaways and what we'll be talking about the next time we join together.
Our Healthy Cooking Group meets on the second Monday of the month. That's a week from tomorrow. We start off our meetings with a short prayer. We touch base with one another. And then we move to the kitchen. Each of us bring our own tools and chef's knife, paring knife, chopping board. And Chef Gary Held, who's, by the way, the head chef, executive chef for Cerner Corporation now, is our teacher. And the gentlemen that are teaching us bring the food, and we cook, and then we eat. But we share a lot of wonderful, supportive fellowship, and it does relieve stress.
God. And I hear you have food, so that's always. Chris, do you have food? Can you?
No, Lee hosts us, and he doesn't even provide tea or coffee, so you just show up.
So you show up early in the morning, and then so I think I know what group I'd be leaning towards. Yeah. That's just me. So we're talking about this idea of finding support in a community and letting that community help support you in times of stress. And I heard you say, Curtis, that the cooking group has helped with it. Would you agree that these communities have helped you with stressful points in your life?
Yeah, for me, it definitely has. And the word stress is actually, when I was sitting down and sort of meditating, I was thinking about what I would say. And a 4-letter word popped up in my head, and it starts with F. And it was fear, right? Fear, to me, is what actually causes stress. And there's a lot of fear when you have a business or when you're doing whatever you do. And one of the points I wanted to make is just, we all have fear in something, and that's what your small group should be around. Find out what that fear is, because that's also the thing you should be doing and pushing forward on. So just a quick example, at the beginning of this year, I was getting ready to do some sales to a specific customer base, and I was talking about metrics and targets, and Lee kind of slowed me down. He said, well, why are you thinking about people as customers and prospects and sales? It's just talking to people and learning about their problems. And that didn't fully resonate until weeks later, and that's what I found is like I take a message away from every meeting we go to or that I go to, but it doesn't really resonate until a few weeks or days later, and that's really the power. So it's connecting my soul to my brain in the business world.
So if there was one takeaway, what would be the one takeaway that has happened for you in your time in either the cooking group or in the entrepreneurs group?
One of the fun things that's a takeaway is there's generally leftover food to take home. It does occur to me when I leave the group and I return home, the joy that we have shared together as a group and the stress reduction that has occurred during that time, because there's nothing else to think about except what we're doing and the friends that are together sharing the artistic creation of putting individual ingredients together to create a beautiful, finished, artistic painting in a delicious dish. And that's what I take away.
My takeaway from doing Entrepreneurs in Spirit is the importance of creating space so you can still be mindful even when you're at work every day. Our brains tend to take over when we're doing work, and as a result, you get caught up in the cycle of just thinking, and then fears and anxiety and new ideas, and your brain takes over. And when you allow that to happen, you kind of lose track of what we're all here for today, which is remaining centered, remaining spirit-led. And so one of my big takeaways from Entrepreneurs in Spirit is actually working less. And that's just in those moments during the day when you take a breath, when you center yourself, when you find your space. Things go a lot better when you do that too. So that's been my big takeaway.
So if I wanted to join either of your two groups, how would I go about joining either the nutrition kitchen, the cooking group, or the entrepreneurs in spirit?
Well, with the cooking group, just show up next Monday at 6:30 in the kitchen downstairs. That's all you need to do. And it's kind of nice if you let us know here at the church that you're coming if you've never been before, so that there's enough food. But you are welcome. It is easy to learn, and all you need to do is just come and be there.
So Entrepreneurs in Spirit meets the last Friday of every month. That will be June 26th this month. We meet from 7:45 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. And because we're business people, we're pretty punctual about that. You can show up late, but we will end pretty much on time. We're going to be meeting at Homer's Coffee Shop this month. And we're actually going to be talking about social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff, and how that can work for your business. And I'm going to take it a little bit deeper in how you should be using it for your business in a purpose-driven way. Yeah. And come with something that you're passionate about. I think that's the one thing. Show up with something that is important to you, because that's the spark of an idea. That's the key to entrepreneurism, is having something you're passionate about. So have that, and we'll talk about it.
One other thing that we are doing, by the way, is while things are baking in the oven or other events are happening in the background, we're also putting together dishes that we make in large quantities to take out to a local women's shelter. And so we've been doing that little project on the side recently, and that's good fun as well.
Yeah, so you're not just supporting yourself, but supporting the community as well. It's wonderful.
That's right.
We're just cutthroat capitalists, so we just talk about our business.
That's why I had both of them up here, so we had balance. It's a yin and yang thing. All right, well, thank you guys so much for coming and for being willing to do this and for sharing with all of us. All right, thank you. And these are just two of the small groups that we have meeting here. After our service today, we're going to be having a potluck downstairs. So you can go downstairs, get something to eat. And then our small group support team is going to be leading a discussion, not just about what groups we already have and support capacities here, but what groups you want to have. The only limit to what groups we can create here are the limits that we're going to put on ourselves. So come downstairs after the service and have that discussion and learn all about what our small groups are here and how they can support you. I was thinking, though, about that idea of support. And I was like, wow, I want to do something that'll visually show how a group can support people. And we saw the spiritual truth. We heard the discussion about how the groups have supported people. And then I remembered that I had promised you that we would get into a spiritual discussion and the great spiritual depth about what you would rather have stand on your foot, an elephant or an ice skater. And that actually relates to the principle that we're talking about. First, before we go anywhere else, how many of you would rather have the ice skater step on your foot? You got a choice. You got to pick one or the other. How about the elephant? A few of you? Excellent. Excellent. Well, see, this principle actually has to do with a scientific and a mathematic principle called surface area. And the idea is, with surface area, especially as it relates to weight, is the weight that you put down on something gets spread out over the area that it has to spread itself out with. So if you think of an ice skater, a 100-pound ice skater, standing on that little tiny blade, that little 1 square-inch blade. And so that 100 pounds has to go out over that entire 1 inch. So you have 100 pounds directly on your foot. Now, if you think of an elephant's foot, which is bigger, an ice skater, the skate, or the foot of an elephant? On the foot of the elephant. So it has more surface area to spread its weight out on. Well, let me show you what we're talking about here. I have 25 cups. Remember our friend from earlier that got crushed? Well, I have 25 cups this time. And so we're going to spread these out here on the floor. And so just so you know, there's nothing sort of shady going on here. I'm going to invite you to count along with me. All right? So we have 1. Thank you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Now, my feet aren't quite elephant size, so I'm going to use this to help me out. So I have this board, and we're going to set the board down right on top of it. But what happens is when I step up on the cups, my weight gets spread out over each cup. And so each individual cup is supporting 1/25 of my weight. So one single cup doesn't have to take the entire stress that I'm putting on it. It's divided 25 ways amongst the other cups. And so when you step into this community, when you step into an area of support in this community, I don't care if it's a small group or if you're volunteering as an usher or you're volunteering upstairs with the children, when you step into that community acts like each one of those cups. It helps hold you up. It supports you. That support can come in the form of a word or two of wisdom from a mentor. It can come in the form of a prayer that you receive from one of the ministers or from a prayer chaplain. It can come in the form of a smile or a laugh that's shared in a small group meeting. But every time you reach out to be a part of the community around you, you add more cups to stand around you, more cups to hold you up when you need help being held up. That's what Unity Church of Overland Park offers to you. We stand here to say, we'll be the cups that stand around you. We'll be the things that hold you up. The catch is you have to be the one to reach out and make that connection. It's up to us to reach out and to connect with the people around us. But when we do, we're held up. We're supported. And the interesting thing is, where these people come around you to support you, that's God. That's the presence of God. It's the God within them. The same light that shines in them that's shining in you comes together to help lift you up. You're in the presence of God when you allow the community to support you, because remember, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them.